Hello and welcome to another episode of Digi-Tools in Accrual World, brought to you by the Digital Disruptors. We are delighted to be joined by a all new, brand spanking, and in tribute to him, I'm wearing my Naked Disruptor t-shirt here, which hopefully he'll have one very soon, by the wonderful Alastair Barlow, who is going to be joining us as a regular new co-host on the podcast. He has, if you don't know him, then you have really lived under a rock, because I made it my first mission in the first season that we ever did of this podcast. I would make sure that every episode, the hidden Easter egg was always mentioned. Was always a mention of Alastair Barlow's name. So it's like a manifested dream to have you on this podcast, Alastair. How are you?
What an intro. Thanks, Indi. And appreciate the Easter eggs in the first season. I maybe fell out of favor or flavor after that, because I don't think I've been an Easter egg in any one of them. But I am really good. Thank you very much. And it's fantastic to be invited onto the show and to contribute in this way.
And since you have exited Linda, which has now been, a couple of years back?
October 2024.
Say again?
October 2024.
October 2024. So since then, what have you been up to?
Oh, there's a long list of things in the profession that I've been doing. Probably trying to ski as much as possible. That's probably the thing that I try and do most. So I write a weekly newsletter called The Naked Accountant. Obviously, your reference to naked. And the concept of that is to be authentic and to be transparent, not actually be naked. Yeah. So if people want to see what I ramble on about, it's about how to build, grow, and exit a modern firm, and all the things that go along with that in this day and age with technology. And you can find that on my LinkedIn profile or at naked.ac. I still support Ascendant in a little bit of their strategy around growth. And so I'm supporting the kind of the hoodie from Ascendant today. So they're looking to acquire more businesses and grow their the kind of the new group there. And I can't sit still. And so I've also co-founded a new technology company, which we're not massively public at the moment in terms of what we do, but watch this space. We've started working with a few design partners, and together with Sebastian Triff, we've co-founded an AI native tech company in the accounting space. So that's super exciting. So I've been on all sides of the table, not just the practitioner and the kind of tech side, but everything in between as well.
And that is why it's invaluable to have you on alongside our wonderful and eccentric and slightly cold up in the north correspondent, John Toon. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Indi. How are you? It's not so cold anymore. Summer's here, isn't it? The winter has finally passed, and enjoying some sunshine up here.
Does that mean that you're allowed to come back down towards us now that the road has thawed?
Yeah, I can finally make it over the pass. Yeah.
Wow. So exciting. I can't wait to see you again. We've got an episode full of accounting tech news, a bit of a mix of perspectives. Really want to get Alastair's perspective on a couple of the pieces that have come out to do with AI related, but also, again, I know that Alastair, on this episode, we're going to talk about some of the things that you are spotting as a growing trend, where you've got AI layered upon AI, and a couple of other pieces that maybe you guys have heard of. So we're going to comment on that, and we'll kick off with John this week.
So Dext have launched a time spent insight product into the app. It builds across 4 specific tiles where you can look at information. I guess the most familiar one for zero users will be the one that's a heat map that shows what your users are doing, when you're looking at a particular user or a particular client user, so you can see how much activity is going on. You can get down into some granular details. You can see on a per user or a per client basis what's been going on, where they've been spending their time. You can also look at that over specific periods of time. So it defaults to 7 or 30 days, depending on what you do, but you can look broader or narrower periods. And you can also get down tight into a client specific portfolio level, so that you can see what your staff or the client staff have been doing as well, just to track that activity. I guess what this is most interesting to be able to see is where are you spending the most or the least time? Is that an efficient use of time? And also, are you then getting billion value out of this from a firm level point of view?
Personally, I love a good heat map. It's like heat map is at a glance tells you a great story, right? Or you can build a story from that. I think what that Dext functionality or feature is probably best for is because you need to have. I'll use this word. I now use this word a lot. Context, right? I mean, I always have, but even more. I think it's going to be the word. So, John, you like your accounting bingo whenever I talk, right? So I think context is going to be on your bingo card for the next couple of years in accounting at every stage we go to. But I think it's, as you say, is if someone's in the product a lot, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? You have to have context to understand that. But I think what it can surface is it can help you build a business case for change. It can help you build a business case for process optimization and re-engineering. So I think being able to surface those data points from Dext is quite a valuable thing.
Very cool. I've got something slightly different from that on Dext altogether. And it's because we've got our esteemed guest with us, Alastair. So AI reporting, and it's landed on Xero by way of bots for that. So AI summaries, dashboards, client insights from bots for that is trying to do something slightly different, but it's following a similar pattern to, I guess, some of the things that we have seen, that pull the data, format it nicely, and maybe adding a bit of AI commentary, and you still end up with obviously the report. But what bots for that is pushing is the idea of reporting as a conversation. So instead of generating outputs, it's continuously syncing Xero data and scanning for trends and anomalies and surfacing some advisory prompts before the accountant even looks at it. And then translating some of that, or all of that actually, into some sort of plain English narrative that a client can understand and help prompt a conversation. So I think there's a bit of a shift here. So here's your numbers, here's why it matters, here's what to do next, and doing that in real time. Again, knowing that we've kind of seen a lot of changes in this market, very interested in your perspective, Alastair, on this, because obviously Xero itself is surfacing the insights on the homepage. Intuit is embedding their AI into its workflows, and others perhaps layering dashboards on top. So what kind of would be helpful to really hear about is a bar already high enough, or is there a lot of risk still here in terms of how that can evolve as the softwares themselves continue to also own more of that?
I will always come back to what's most useful for a business owner is the context of financial data and operational data. And if bots for that are integrating with Xero and only Xero, then the context is missing as to really having a valuable conversation around what's happening as a business owner, because you're only getting one side of the equation. And it's not really telling you, I mean, it's the first step, yeah, but it's not really telling you where and what's going on in your business and the implications of, an increase in revenue. Why actually is that? You might have a separate billing system, right? And so if you've got a separate billing system and you have one journal a day, or, you don't have the granular level of detail in Xero, like what value are you actually going to get out of what you're having the conversation with bots for that for? So I think it's a good first step. I think we saw something with Fathom that you covered as well, that Fathom are also doing AI generated reporting on a kind of a very similar path that what we're hearing here. So I think we're going to see more of this. It's a great first step to be able to do it, and having that more conversational approach rather than just a static report is a great step as well. And I think we're going to see more of the richer level of insight or richer level of information that comes as more applications get connected to this kind of conversational layer. But also I think we're going to see different ways different mediums in which the user can interact with it. So I think that will come as well. I don't want to say too much because I've seen some things that maybe aren't public. So I think it's a great thing, but I think it's missing context. That's really valuable. And I think at some point it can actually become dangerous, right? And maybe this is a little bit bleeding into the Anthropic Claude the Anthropic and Zero announcement is that you think you're armed, like as an end business owner, you think you're armed with enough information because, hey, you've got it at your fingertips. You can ask it questions. Do I have enough cash to hire someone else or whatever the use cases are for that? And, assuming the model is sufficiently equipped with the data points from Zero, it's not really adding the context that's not in Zero. It's limited by the data points that are in Zero. So it's missing kind of forecasts. It's missing like off balance sheet, off financial forecasts. It's missing the pipeline that might sit in a CRM. It's missing loads of other context that an accountant will take in to appreciation when they make that decision or that recommendation. And so an end business owner thinking, hey, and we've got access to Claude, it can go in, it can give me answers. You don't know what you don't know, and therefore there are a lot of points where it can give you, misinformation because it's just not got the complete picture. So I think great, but be careful how you use it is kind of my. I'm still pro accountant, even though I'm pro AI. I think you still need that last mile of defense with an accountant.
No.
John, your perspective.
I think I think what bots for that are doing is really interesting. And I do agree with Alastair that the problem with any app that serves one just particular product and not expands into a broader set of products is it's challenging for a larger firm like the ones that I used to work for, to adopt that product broadly, because unless you're just sort of sitting in one product, so from a particular choice point of view, whether that's because you do all your bookkeeping there or whether that's just because you can align with one product, that works. But once you get into a larger firm, it's more difficult to do that. More difficult to serve more clients, and then also it makes the conversations with clients more challenging.
I think another thing just to kind of chip in there and riff on is the quality of the commentary. So if you look at the kind of end-to-end process of ingestion through to insight or action, right? And in the middle there you've got reconciliation, you've got other workflows, you've got reporting. But if you look at that kind of end-to-end flow, everything flows downstream from the quality of data capture or data ingestion. And so if bots for that or anyone is creating a commentary, it's only going to be as rich. One, we've talked about the kind of the non-financial data context is missing, but it's only going to be as rich as the data capture, the fidelity of the information, right? So how high fidelity the information is. So if you're posting an invoice and you write in, I don't know, invoice number XYZ or 123, right, is your narrative, then, that's not going to be as rich as, MacBook costs for new employee, blah, 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 right? And so I don't know bots for that are actually doing it, but presumably the second example there, bots for that are able to take the description and go, oh, okay, there's a new Mac for a new employee versus invoice 123. So it can obviously do, again, it comes to context, right, and richness of information. So, a lot of this is probably the quality of the output is probably based on the quality of the input. And that's why I truly believe that the starting point of the funnel is the quality of data capture. And so that could be a limitation based on how firms are set up to actually capture sufficient granularity.
Interesting on this. So I'm just going to take us back to a podcast that we did a couple of weeks ago, and it was about Briefcase launching Briefcase One. So that was, again, to your point, adding a lot more context in the workflow, rebuilding the entire workflow from the first principles, the capture of the documents, and using things like WhatsApp, email portals, auto matching the bank transactions, suggesting coding, pushing into the double entry ledger, and then also submitting directly to HMRC in the one flow. So it's like it's not capturing there, capturing here, and then reconciling there, and then filing in some other place. It was all kind of under one, and that's hence Briefcase One. So is that, to the conversation that we're having now around how, the evolution of some of these softwares is coming down the track is more around taking ownership of the GL in some way, a light GL that can service SMEs a little bit more than what they currently do?
It goes back to what Alastair was saying. And, you could almost sort of say, well, you know, someone pays for a telephone bill. What insights can you get from that, right? You know, what insights can you get from a £15 a month invoice that goes through every month? I mean, the only insight you might be able to get is like when it spikes one month because someone's travelled away on holiday and they've had to pay another 20 quid for using their data overseas or something. It doesn't really give you much information. There are particular pieces of information in an organisation that provide real data points that are valid. You and like Alice was saying, you might buy a laptop or an iPad or whatever it might be for an employee. But again, how relevant is that without knowing how many employees? So I think the conversation around expenditure is only relevant in a very narrow field, and it's only relevant when you're doing your bookkeeping. Once you kind of get outside of that, conversation around spend has to be brought into a broader realm of like, do you understand what the organization is doing? Do you understand what their cycles of business look like? Do you understand what they're going to be doing with this product, once they've done something with it? So, yeah, I mean, I can't get too excited about these sort of additional products because I just think they create noise unless it's very, very focused.
I think the way we viewed it at Flinder was always, you have a finite amount of costs, right? There's only so much kind of cost analysis or cost savings you can do. But when you work with businesses, the most powerful thing you can look at is what is revenue, what is margin, what is unit economics, and what are the levers to increase each one of those? Because that's basically infinite, right? You can continue increasing revenue and increasing gross margin and also ultimately EBITDA by kind of pulling the levers on direct costs and kind of the revenue drivers. And so that quite often in a will sit in a separate billing system. So therefore, what are you actually getting from Xero in that regard? And that kind of leads on to like, well, is Xero quite a dumb system in the way it's kind of built at the moment, and is actually the future? Like, I don't know what Xero is now, $50 or so. Is Xero actually way overpriced for being a dumb system, and the power and the value is in workflows? Well, maybe we're going off topic from what you mentioned about Briefcase One and the MTD product here. I think kind of like reading a little bit about it, it was inspired by user demand or customer demand, which, you got to listen to your customers. But then I kind of step back and go, well, they would have presented a vision to their investors, and is that vision like, have they gone on a little side quest, or are they still on the same original vision, which I don't know. And so I think that's an interesting one, actually. Yeah.
You make a very good point. Possibly, though, what they are demonstrating to their investors is that they're robust in their approach, and actually making sure that any type of pivot that is happening is rooted in at least demand. We see what happens when people die hard to their vision, and then, it doesn't actually pan out because we're in quite a tumultuous phase of technology build.
Yeah, being really, really, really critical on the approach. Was it £9 a month or something like that? I mean, it's a lot of license you've got to sell to get I don't know, 50 million seed valuation or thereabouts. They raised 3 million, so I guess it's like 12 pre-money, 15 post money. That's a lot of licenses you got to sell to get to there. So, yeah, I don't know. But if the market demands it, the market demands it. So good luck. Good luck to those guys.
Interesting. Okay, moving on to something else that the market demands, maybe. Well, definitely there is some demand for it. Is a launch from Zoho. They've actually launched a couple of things, but I'll cover the first one in a bit more detail and go on to the latter one next. Zoho have been really busy over the last few months building out all sorts of things. They finally got MTD for VAT. They brought CIS into the products, and then they brought more recently MTD for income tax into the product. So they are very much tracking kind of the statutory requirements in the UK much more closely than they were a good few years ago. And Zoho Books, an American product, kind of spun out a CRM system historically. Now doing accounting. I would say that probably still pitches at a sort of slightly larger organization generally than probably exactly compete with the Xeros and QuickBooks of the world, but I do know that some small organizations are using it. So interestingly enough, they have now launched the ability to do corporation tax and year-end accounts in the product. Now, there are some limitations to this. They will only do FRS 105, so micro entity accounts. Hence the reason why I mentioned I think they tend to pitch at larger organizations. So there's a bit of a mismatch there. And they will do a standard CT600 and then a CT600A, which is basically the one that captures any directors' loan accounts and stuff, which is prevalent in the SME sector. So at least they kind of show some indication that they understand the space. And that's now in there, and they've brought that into the product off the back of the fact that the online filing that you could do, the combined online filing that you could do with Companies House and HMRC, ceased to exist from the end of March. And so anyone that wants to file company accounts from the 1st of April onwards has now got to find a piece of software to do that. And now, obviously, Zoho are not the only ones doing this. QuickBooks have had this for a long time. FreeAgent have had this for a long time. Xero have had this for a long time. All of the pretty much standard accounts production systems that most accounting firms have will enable you to file electronically, do all the iXBRL tagging and everything else that you need to do. This is only available to accountants, not to the general public, which is interesting because, for me, if I was Zoho, I'd just be going direct to market because that's where the opportunity lies. There aren't that many firms aligned with Zoho, so why try and just go through some kind of partner program to sell this? But that is where they're at. And to increase their presence in the market, they're going to have to offer 102, 1A at the very least, probably 102 at some point, further down the track to add into this. Coupled with that, they have also added a free plan and a freemium model for their MTD for income tax modules, which I just talked about as well. So you've now got access to this. And I guess this is quite a smart move probably from Zoho insofar as a lot of organizations that may be looking at bridging tools often go for a bridging tool because it tends to be pretty cheap or it tends to be free. Going in low at this kind of level gets some people onto your platform. It gets you access to them, and then you can upsell them into other things. And we saw this historically with the MTD for VAT. Or you'll get weaned off the bridging into some kind of real product at some point. And so that's now there in the product. It's there for anyone that wants to use it. You can sign up online. Dead easy to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a great, nifty little launch for them. Like you said, it's not just them. There's a handful of others that have been in this space doing the similar sorts of things. NOMI, KPM as well. Some of the other ones that are targeting that side of the market with compelling value propositions, and obviously have the accounts production outside of the ones that you mentioned: Intuit, FreeAgent, Xero, and Sage. Good. And then I've got something slightly different, and it's a story that has been doing the rounds, and it's probably very hyper relevant right now. The idea of a fully AI run accounting firm, which I think we're all waiting and holding our breath to see who's taking the first leap into that canyon. And it seems that someone has taken that step in Alexis Kingsbury. So a thought experiment called Accrual Intentions. I feel like it's so close to my own heart. Built using 11 AI agents to simulate an entire practice. So onboarding, client comms, compliance workflows, accounts prep, and even the internal team meetings and plannings. So on the surface, the feedback, and I know that Ryan has experimented with this and he has really evangelized, actually. He's put himself forward as the guinea pig, our very own Ryan Piercy, and he said it actually worked. So he was very impressed with it. The system managed to produce accounts that he said were comparable and sometimes better than junior staff output. And that's the big headline takeaway from this. I think the more interesting bit is underneath that, because it shows how deeply embedded AI can become inside a firm's workflow, and runs the entire operating system of the practice. But the opportunity is sort of where I see the risk also sitting. So to your earlier points, Alastair, around this kind of technology model stacking and the what did you call it? You called it the double subsidy of technology. Double subsidy, right? To get anywhere, like, you're effectively building a heavily AI subsidized tech stack. And that's the problem is, like, again, the cost creep and paying vendors who themselves are perhaps paying for also the same AI infrastructure and passing that cost on. So again, very interested to hear your perspective on this one, because yes, you get the automation. This is the direction that we think that we're all meant to be going. But what's your take?
So I think so this is something that I've been kind of exploring and trying to back engineer in a number of applications as to how many tokens they're actually using to serve the workflows or the activities that they're performing for us rather than a human. And so I guess as accounting firms, we see all these cool tools, you see the big frontier models, and then you kind of see the ones that are dedicated in the accounting channel and go, I guess people more pioneering firms have been using kind of the LLMs for a few years, started on like, how can I write an email better? How can I do marketing or LinkedIn post or riffing off it? And now they're using it for technical support. And maybe they're actually using something like Claude Code or Cowork to actually fill the gaps where one application might do something, another might do, and a human would have done something in between that, like kind of bridge the two pillars. And then they're using Claude Code or something to fill that gap, right? And now we're seeing a bit more around accounting native, AI native applications in the accounting world. We talked about Briefcase, there's Artifact, there's Mimo, there's Archie, there's help me out, maybe bots for that a little bit, but there's like more native ones, right? And so the accounting firms are kind of going, oh, cool. Well, I can do a bunch of activities using this new vendor, and it saves me, at the moment it's activities it's hours of a person rather than a person. But at some point, maybe a role will be displaced, or enough of a role to redesign what that role looks like and move people into different roles. And so at the moment we're at the advent where it's like, oh, cool, let's trial it. Let's see what it can do. And I think when we've kind of back engineered what's actually going on under the hood in terms of tokens, it appears that, and I'm not saying categorically because I don't know, but it appears that a lot of these tech AI native vendors who are VC backed are actually subsidizing the cost of an activity, because the token usage is more than the cost of what we're actually paying for it. So they're obviously subsidizing it from their VC money. Now, the actual tokens that they're paying for are also subsidized at the kind of the LLM level as well. So think Anthropic or OpenAI, they are being subsidized by their billions of dollars that they've raised. So at some point there will be a reckoning. But if you think about it now, firms are looking to evolve their operating model so they can use the AI native accounting applications. And, if they embed them because they think, oh, this is a slicker process. And of course, there are other advantages to using AI. It's not just cost. It could be quicker response time. It could be higher quality. It could be leveraging my team to go. I have a capacity issue. So I'm leveraging my team to go and do something that is much harder to do. And the capacity challenge can be solved by AI. So it's not just price that's the driver there. But at some point after they've re-engineered their operating model, and all of a sudden somebody needs to recoup the investor dollars that be put in at the application level, then those prices will go up. And then at the LLM model level, at some point, those prices will go up as well to recoup the billions that they've had invested in them. So I think there's a reckoning coming in a number of years on the true cost of the token usage for any activity. So I think that's a really interesting one to think about, to look at, to evaluate, because we're on a bit of a free lunch at the moment when we try these products and think that they're, $100 a month or whatever it might be, or a few £100 a month. I think there will be a price adjustment at some point in the future. And of course, everybody's reckoning that the prices will come down at some point, but there still probably will be a price adjustment at some point.
Alastair, I mean, I've got an interesting sort of question, hopefully, on this, but do you think the pricing adjustment will happen on both sides, because the token usage, if you like, is sort of the commercial pricing that most users like myself don't normally see generally, because we're not accessing these products through an API or through some kind of connection. But the consumer price is the subscription that the subscriptions will go up, but maybe the token price not, because token prices historically have been coming down with every new model that's been launched. The previous models have deprecated and their value has diminished quite rapidly.
So I think it's an interesting question. I think on the level that we're closest to, so the vendors, like it's not a new thing that a venture-backed company comes in at a lower price. That's like, land grab. Let's try and get as many users as we can. VC will pay for the land grab, and then we'll slowly get synergies, or we'll have mass adoption, and therefore we'll own the space, and we can control the price as and when. So there's no real difference in that to any other VC backed. I think maybe the extent of the costs is maybe a little bit different to what we've seen before. But to your question on at the LLM level, I think one of the things to bear in mind is who's a free user and who's a paid user, right? So I think on the you can use I guess any one of the models you can use free, and so there's a high proportion of freemium users on that. So I think OpenAI is something like 95%. So the 5% of paid users are covering all those 95%. So there's some other interesting pricing dynamics here. So what happens if that balance changes? What happens if actually there's even greater adoption? So we all know of the 42,000 or whatever firms are in the country, like there ain't 42,000 firms using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, right? And so when that bleeds it, and we're in a bit of a bubble, right? In terms of like the three of us and the people that are the audience on the podcast, is a bubble. Not everybody has heard of AI. Not everybody has heard of ChatGPT. Not everybody's using it. So as it kind of adoption increases, and bleeds into those that are the kind of laggards of late adopters, they're going to make free models as well, most probably, right? Because they want to trial it. And so what does that mean? Well, it means the cost of the free users, the costs to the models goes up. So the paying users have to cover that as well. So there's lots of different dynamics to affect that.
I'm going to just end on this point. I think that, like you said, it's an experiment. The experiment showed that actually the agents, they also invented insurance that they didn't have. They suggested pricing structures incorrectly. They missed core workflow steps within the process. And I think that it just shows that, okay, AI can help support the running of a firm, but it can't take the responsibility of one. So that's my conclusion on that. And then I think we're going to end on one piece which is slightly lighter, and perhaps you guys saw it. We're going to end on Vinyl, and Vinyl pulling its April Fool's prank. And we said about this, Alastair, a moment ago. Haven't seen as many April Fools as I've seen in the last year, possibly because AI is helping enable more people to show their comedy prowess. But yeah, we saw one that was from Jordan and his team on let's take this offline, and then it automatically ends the meeting. Hilarious. Loved it. Not sure that I would agree there's a best use of AI and tech, but yeah, it is an April Fool. So for those of you that were worried that your meeting is going to suddenly end as soon as you say let's take this offline, don't worry, it was a joke.
I've got a couple of points actually, just on the AI token usage. Have either of you come across the caveman that has figured out a way to absolutely rationalize the number of tokens he uses in prompting and getting responses? Have you seen this? Where it's really taking it back to the bare bones. So there's missing out a bunch of words in a sentence to really like minimize. So it's kind of like Claude will reply with tool done rather than a big long list of what it's actually done. And so it really rationalizes how many tokens. And one, it's saving on the environment as well, because obviously there's a lot of compute and power costs here, which I think is, I think at some point we will, or maybe users should be demanding to see, not just the cost of the price cost of the application, but also what is the incremental cost, and therefore there's probably a balance to have, because I think that's something that people will care about when they start to realize the how much actual power that goes into this. So yeah, it's definitely something to rationalize your context prompting.
Thanks for joining us on today's podcast, and thanks to Alastair, who has come and given his perspective. You will hear a lot more of his dulcet tones, and as always, our man in the north, who will hopefully be able to make it down past the M6 corridor into the south.
He's king of the north, not just the man of the north. We all love him.
King of the north, the king. But thanks for joining us. And if you've got any feedback, then please do get in touch. And don't forget that we've got our awards event coming up this year. We're doing a lot of prep very early on. So if you want to stay connected to it, sign up on the website. You can find out more information and then get yourself ready to nominate anyone that you think is worthy of being a digital disruptor this year for 2026. Thanks again, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Ciao.
Bye.